In just 42 seconds, one of America's most beloved friendships exploded on live television. A simple question turned into an all-out war. Accusations flew across the stage. Voices were raised. And Blake Shelton threw down his microphone and stormed off Kelly Clarkson's show while cameras were still rolling. What you're about to hear is the complete breakdown of a friendship that shocked millions of viewers watching at home. Before we dive into this absolute mess, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the confrontations they don't want you to see, and the moments that reveal who these celebrities really are behind their polished images. Last night's episode of The Kelly Clarkson Show was supposed to be a fun reunion between two voice coaches who've known each other for years. Instead, it became one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history. The tension started building from the very first moment Blake walked onto the stage, and by the end, their friendship was in absolute ruins. Blake came out with his usual big smile, waving to the audience as Kelly's band played him in. He sat down on the couch, adjusted his jacket, and settled in. Kelly was sitting across from him in her chair, and right away, something felt off. Her smile seemed forced, tight at the corners. The audience couldn't feel it yet, but there was definitely something brewing under the surface. Kelly started with what seemed like friendly small talk, asking Blake about his life in Oklahoma, how he was enjoying being away from the spotlight. Blake answered cheerfully, talking about his cattle, his land, how peaceful everything was. He mentioned loving the quiet life, being able to wake up without cameras in his face. The audience laughed along. Everything seemed normal. Then Kelly's tone shifted slightly. She leaned forward in her chair and said, "So Blake, you've been pretty quiet lately. Some people are saying you've been avoiding certain conversations." Her eyebrows raised just a bit, and Blake's smile faltered for just a second. "What do you mean by that?" Blake asked, still keeping his voice light but clearly confused. Kelly didn't answer directly. Instead, she pivoted to talking about The Voice, about how the show had changed over the years, about how coaching styles were different now. Blake nodded along, agreeing, not seeing where this was going. He started sharing a story about a funny moment from his last season, but Kelly cut him off mid-sentence. "That's interesting," she said, but her voice had an edge to it now. "But I think we should talk about what really matters, about how you treated some of the contestants behind the scenes." The audience went quiet. Blake's face completely changed. His smile disappeared, and he sat up straighter on the couch. "Excuse me?" he said, his voice dropping lower. "What the hell are you talking about, Kelly?" Kelly held up her hand like she was the one being reasonable. "I'm just saying what everyone's been thinking. There have been rumors, Blake. Stories about how you weren't exactly the nicest person when cameras weren't rolling. About how you made people feel small." Blake's jaw clenched. You could see his hands grip the armrest of the couch. "That's complete bullshit, and you know it. Where is this coming from?" The audience was dead silent now. This wasn't playful banter between friends. This was something real, something raw, and it was happening right in front of everyone. Kelly continued, and this is where things really started to fall apart. She mentioned specific contestants, people who had supposedly complained about Blake's attitude. She brought up moments from years ago, twisting them to make Blake sound like he'd been cruel or dismissive. Her voice got more confident as she went on, like she'd been preparing this whole speech. Blake's face was turning red. He interrupted her, his voice getting louder. "You're seriously doing this right now? On your show? In front of all these people? What kind of friend does this?" Kelly shot back. "A friend who isn't afraid to ask the tough questions. A friend who holds people accountable." "Accountable for what?" Blake yelled. His voice echoed through the studio. "For made-up stories? For lies? You've known me for over a decade, Kelly. You know exactly who I am." Kelly didn't back down. If anything, she pushed harder. "Do I, though? Because the Blake I'm hearing about from other people sounds very different from the Blake who shows up on camera." That's when Blake stood up from the couch. He was towering over Kelly now, not threatening, but definitely done with sitting there and taking this ambush. The audience gasped. Some people in the crowd looked genuinely scared that this might turn into something physical, though Blake would never do that. "Who told you this crap?" Blake demanded. His voice was shaking not from fear, but from pure anger and hurt. "Because whoever it is, they're lying to you, and you're believing them over me. Over someone who's been in your corner since day one. Kelly stood up too, not wanting to be looked down on. They were face to face now, just a few feet apart, and you could cut the tension with a knife. Maybe I'm believing them because their stories make sense, Kelly said coldly. Maybe I'm believing them because I've seen hints of this behavior myself and just ignored it. Blake's mouth fell open. He looked like he'd just been slapped. You've got to be kidding me! You've seen hints? Like what, Kelly? Tell me one time, one single time, where I did something that would make you think I'm the person you're describing right now. Kelly crossed her arms. The confident look on her face was infuriating Blake even more. She started listing off these vague incidents, moments where Blake had supposedly been dismissive in meetings or short with production staff. Nothing concrete, nothing specific, just these general accusations that could mean anything or nothing. That's what you're basing this on? Blake shouted. That I was short with someone once? That I didn't smile big enough in a meeting? Are you serious right now? The audience was completely frozen. Nobody was clapping. Nobody was reacting. Everyone was just watching this friendship implode in real time. Some people had their phones out, recording, knowing this was going to be everywhere within hours. Kelly's face hardened even more. I'm basing this on a pattern of behavior that people have reported. I'm basing this on gossip, Blake cut her off. You're basing this on gossip and rumors, and you're treating them like facts, and you're doing it publicly on your show to humiliate me. Kelly's eyes flashed. If you feel humiliated, maybe that says something about the truth of what I'm saying. That line hung in the air for a moment. Blake took a step back, shaking his head slowly. He looked genuinely hurt now, beyond the anger. His voice got quieter, which somehow made it even more powerful. I can't believe you, he said. I can't believe you'd do this to me. We've been through so much together. The voice, all those years, supporting each other. And this is how you treat me? By blindsiding me with this garbage on live television? Kelly didn't apologize. She didn't soften. Instead, she doubled down. I'm doing this because someone needs to. Because people are scared to confront you. Because you've gotten comfortable thinking you can act however you want and nobody will say anything. Blake let out a harsh laugh, no humor in it at all. Act however I want? Kelly, I've spent my entire career trying to help people. Every contestant I've worked with, I've given everything to them. I've stayed late. I've made phone calls. I've used my connections to help their careers. And this is what I get? These accusations from someone who's supposed to be my friend? The confrontation was reaching a boiling point. Kelly stepped closer to Blake, her finger pointing at him. Maybe you helped them, but at what cost? Maybe you helped them while making them feel like they weren't good enough. Maybe you helped them while tearing down their confidence. Blake's face was bright red now. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides, not in a threatening way, but in a way that showed he was barely holding it together. Name one person. Give me one name of someone who said, I did that to them. Kelly hesitated for just a second. I'm not going to throw people under the bus by naming them. They came to me in confidence. How convenient, Blake spat out. So you get to accuse me of all this horrible stuff, but you don't have to back it up with any actual evidence or names. That's real brave of you, Kelly. Real classy. Kelly's voice rose to match his volume. I don't need to prove anything to you. The fact that multiple people have said these things speaks for itself. Multiple people, Blake repeated mockingly. Multiple anonymous people with convenient stories that you won't share any details about. And I'm supposed to just sit here and take it? Accept that I'm this terrible person based on your secret sources? The band members were looking at each other nervously. The producers in the booth were probably losing their minds, trying to figure out if they should cut to commercial. But nobody stopped it. This was pure, unfiltered conflict. And it was captivating in the most uncomfortable way. Blake continued, his voice getting louder again. You know what I think this is really about? I think this is about you being jealous. Jealous that I've been able to step away from everything and be happy while you're still here grinding it out every day. Kelly's face went pale, then flushed with anger. Jealous? You think I'm jealous of you? That's rich, Blake. That's really rich. Yeah, I do, Blake said, nodding. I think you resent that I got out, that I'm living my life on my terms, and you're still playing the game. So you decide to drag me down, make up these stories, try to ruin my reputation because if you can't be happy, nobody can. Kelly's mouth opened and closed. For a second, she seemed actually speechless. Then she found her voice again, and it was ice cold. You're delusional. Absolutely delusional. This has nothing to do with jealousy, and everything to do with accountability. There's that word again, Blake shot back. Accountability. You keep saying it like it means something. Like you're doing something noble here. But you know what you're really doing? You're ambushing someone who trusted you. You invited me on your show under false pretenses so you could attack me in front of an audience. Kelly stepped even closer, getting right in Blake's space. I invited you here to have an honest conversation. If you can't handle honesty, that's on you. Blake laughed again, that same bitter sound. Honest conversation? Kelly, an honest conversation happens in private, between friends. This? He gestured to the cameras, the audience, the whole setup. This is a public execution. This is you trying to score points by taking me down. The audience was squirming in their seats. Some people looked like they wanted to leave but were too afraid to move. Others were completely glued to what was happening, unable to look away from this train wreck. Kelly's voice got even sharper. If you feel attacked, maybe you should think about why these accusations hurt so much. Maybe there's truth in them that you don't want to face. That seemed to be the final straw for Blake. His whole body language changed. He stopped trying to argue, stopped trying to defend himself. He just looked at Kelly with this expression of complete disappointment and disgust. You know what, Kelly? I'm done. I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with your show. And honestly, I'm done with you. Kelly's eyes widened slightly, but she kept her defensive posture. So you're just going to run away instead of facing this? Blake shook his head slowly. I'm not running away from anything. I'm walking away from someone who's shown me exactly who they are. Someone who values ratings and drama more than a friendship that's lasted over 10 years. Someone who would rather believe gossip than believe someone they claim to care about. He turned toward the cameras, then back to Kelly. His voice got quieter but somehow more intense. I came here today thinking we were going to have fun, catch up, laugh about old times. Instead, you planned this whole thing to make me look bad. To make yourself look like some kind of hero for calling me out. Kelly opened her mouth to respond, but Blake held up his hand. Don't. Just don't. I don't want to hear any more of your justifications or your excuses. You made your choice when you decided to do this. Now I'm making mine. And what choice is that? Kelly asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Blake bent down and unclipped the microphone from his shirt. He held it in his hand for a moment, looking at it, then looked back at Kelly. I'm choosing to leave. I'm choosing to walk away from this disaster you've created. And I'm choosing to never forget how you treated me today. He dropped the microphone on the couch. The sound of it hitting the cushion echoed through the silent studio. The audience was completely still, barely breathing. Kelly's face showed a flash of something. Maybe regret, maybe panic. But she quickly covered it with more anger. Fine. Leave. Run away like you always do when things get hard. Blake stopped walking and turned back around. His face was a mixture of hurt and fury. When have I ever run away from anything, Kelly? Tell me. When? Kelly scrambled for an answer. You ran away from The Voice. You ran away from Hollywood. You ran away from... I didn't run away from anything. Blake's voice boomed through the studio. I made choices about my life. About what made me happy. That's not running away. That's called living. But you wouldn't understand that because you're so caught up in this world, in these stupid games, that you can't imagine anyone wanting something different. Kelly's composure was cracking now. Her voice got higher, more defensive. I'm not caught up in anything. I'm successful. I'm happy. You're miserable, Blake interrupted. And I feel sorry for you. I really do. Because you had a real friend in me, someone who would have been there for you no matter what. And you threw it away for this. For a viral moment. For some clicks and views. Kelly's face flushed deep red. Get out. Get off my stage. Blake held up his hands. Already going. Don't worry. I wouldn't stay here another second if you paid me. Good, Kelly shouted. We don't want you here anyway. Blake turned his back on her and started walking toward the exit. The audience didn't know whether to clap, boo, or stay silent. Most of them chose silence. You could hear Blake's boots on the stage floor, each step echoing. Kelly called after him, her voice cracking slightly. Everyone's going to see this, Blake. Everyone's going to know what you really are. Blake stopped at the edge of the stage but didn't turn around. His shoulders were tense, his hands in fists again. For a moment, it looked like he might turn back around and continue the fight. But then he took a deep breath and kept walking. The cameras followed him as he pushed through the backstage curtain. You could see crew members jumping out of his way, everyone looking shocked and confused. Blake didn't stop, didn't slow down, just kept walking until he disappeared from view. Back on the stage, Kelly stood there alone, her chest heaving, her face still flushed. The audience was completely silent. Nobody knew what to do. Kelly looked at the cameras, then at the audience. And for just a moment, you could see the realization hitting her. The understanding of what had just happened. One of the producers must have signaled to cut, because Kelly suddenly tried to compose herself. She smoothed down her hair, cleared her throat, but her hands were shaking. "Well," she said, her voice unsteady, "I guess that's that." The audience still didn't react. The uncomfortable silence stretched on. Kelly tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. "We'll be right back after this break." But before they could cut away, you could hear commotion from backstage. Shouting, doors slamming. Everyone in the studio could hear it. Kelly's eyes darted toward the sound, and for the first time since this whole thing started, she looked genuinely worried. A production assistant ran onto the stage and whispered something urgently to Kelly. Whatever they said made Kelly's face go pale. She nodded, and the assistant ran off again. Kelly looked directly into the camera, and when she spoke, her voice was completely different from the confident, accusatory tone she'd had during the confrontation. She sounded small, uncertain. "We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a few minutes." The cameras finally cut away, but everyone in that studio and everyone watching at home knew something major had just happened. A friendship had ended right there on live television. Blake Shelton, one of country music's biggest stars, had been pushed to his limit by someone he considered a friend, and he'd made the choice to walk away rather than continue fighting. The argument had started with Kelly's accusations, vague and unsupported, thrown at Blake in front of millions of viewers. It escalated when Blake defended himself, when he called out Kelly for ambushing him. It reached its peak when both of them let their real feelings show, when the gloves came off and they stopped pretending this was anything other than a complete breakdown. Kelly had wanted to expose Blake, to hold him accountable for things he supposedly did. But what she actually exposed was herself, her willingness to betray a friendship for content, her inability to have a difficult conversation in private like an adult. She exposed her own insecurities, her own jealousy, everything she accused Blake of. Blake, on the other hand, showed restraint even in his anger. He could have said worse things, could have attacked Kelly the way she attacked him. Instead, he defended himself, called out her behavior, and made the choice to leave with whatever dignity he could salvage from the situation. The whole thing lasted less than 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. Every word was loaded with years of friendship now being questioned. Every accusation Kelly made was met with Blake's genuine confusion and hurt. Every defense Blake offered was dismissed by Kelly's determination to paint him as the villain. What made it even more uncomfortable was watching it happen in real time, with no editing, no cuts, no way to take anything back. The audience sat there witnessing something that should have been private, if it should have happened at all. They saw two people who once cared about each other tear each other apart with words. Kelly's choice to do this on her show, in front of an audience, with cameras rolling, revealed something about her priorities. She could have called Blake privately, could have asked him about these rumors in a conversation between friends. Instead, she chose the public route, the dramatic route, the route that would get people talking. And Blake's choice to walk away, to literally leave the stage and the show, revealed his boundaries. He wasn't going to sit there and be accused of things he didn't do. He wasn't going to let someone, even a former friend, trash his reputation without fighting back. But he also wasn't going to stay somewhere he wasn't respected or valued. The final image, Blake's back as he walked through the curtain and disappeared, said everything. It was a man who had reached his limit, who had been pushed too far, who was done trying to reason with someone who had already made up their mind about him. And Kelly, standing alone on that stage, trying to maintain her composure but visibly shaken, showed what happens when you push someone away who cared about you. She won the battle she wanted, got her viral moment, got people talking about her show. But at what cost? The friendship that had been built over years of working together, supporting each other, being there through ups and downs, was destroyed in less than half an hour. All because Kelly decided to believe rumors over the person she claimed to know. All because she valued confrontation over conversation. As Blake walked out of that studio, past crew members and staff who didn't know what to say or do, he left behind more than just a taping of a talk show. He left behind a friendship, a connection, and any remaining respect he had for someone who had shown her true colors in the worst possible way. Kelly remained on that stage, and whether she realized it in that moment or not, she had just made one of the biggest mistakes of her career. She had alienated a friend, shocked her audience, and revealed herself to be someone willing to hurt others for entertainment value. The dramatic exit wasn't just Blake leaving the show. It was Blake leaving that entire chapter of his life behind, walking away from someone who had proven they couldn't be trusted, who would throw away years of friendship for ratings and attention. And everyone watching knew they had just witnessed something that would define both of their careers and reputations for a long time to come.